Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Nate here, and Skyrim is the land of chaos, dragons, civil wars, and there's an obviously subpar sanitary condition plaguing everyday life for those who inhabit this frozen wasteland. You can imagine just how scary trying to survive here must be. And in the spirit of Halloween, today we'll be taking a look at just how spooky Skyrim can get, whether it be a hidden army of enslaved ghosts, or an uneasy tale of really bad financial planning. Today we'll be taking a look at 5 hidden and spooky Skyrim secrets. To kick this list off, Randveig's Fast is an ancient Nordic tomb located between Morthal and Whiterun. It's guarded by a handful of ghosts, but these are no ordinary hostile spirits. You see, while they'll attack the Dragonborn on sight, they don't actually want to, but seem to be being forced to do so. As these spirits hack and slash at you, they'll say things along the lines of, "This isn't what I want, I'm sorry," and "I don't have any choice, I'm sorry." They're also referred to as subjugated ghosts by the game, so that may give you a few clues as to what's going on. Press further into the temple, beating back the enslaved spirits, and you can come across a large chest, sitting directly in front of a word of power. Quite the enticing presentation for someone of your stature. However, what's slightly hidden out of your view is a trap door just underneath all of this loot, meant to break away at the first threat of pressure. It'll lead to a long fall into a small cage. A trap! Still encaged with you are the corpses of a few other adventurers that must have taken the bait as well. The man behind this ploy is Sild the Warlock, a crazed necromancer who's been killing anyone foolish enough to travel into his tomb, but not before torturing them and then proceeding to steal their souls after death. It's a pretty horrific idea. Not even dying could get you away from this psycho. If you really want to break free, you'll have to pick the lock of the cage and personally put an end to Sild's tyranny, if you catch my drift. On a desk is a journal in which he writes about many of the trials and tribulations he's gone through. He complains about people being killed by the fall into the trap, which is frustrating for him because while he's still able to steal their souls, that's not nearly as fun as torturing them to death. How depressing. All throughout his small dwelling are the cages of other victims, random Nords, elves, and even a dog. It's truly terrifying when you think about all this monster has done. Thankfully, you can give this story a happy ending, or at least as happy as it can get, and ensure that this man isn't able to claim any more innocent lives. Next, Balian is certainly hiding something dark, but we never get to know what his secret is, which only makes it all the more spooky. He's a Redguard mage residing in Morthal, for mysterious reasons. You see, he's the only person knowledgeable enough to cure vampirism, evidently studied at the College of Winterhold, and even claims to have met a living Dwemer. Surely a man of this stature has better places to be than an isolated village surrounded by marshes, right? When questioned about this, Balian will claim that he's protecting Morthal from something, but refuses to elaborate any further. The Jarl's son Jorik will reveal that he's been having nightmares about this man, and believes Balian sneaking out of the town at night. The Jarl will task you with following him around to see what he's up to. Why guards couldn't have taken up this role, I have no idea. But you'll find every night at midnight he sneaks out of the city and goes to a small arrangement of stones where he'll just stand around for a few hours and then go back home. You can approach Balian and call him out for this weird little ritual, and he'll demand that you tell no one. You're given the option to agree to this and keep his secret, or you can just report him to the Jarl. And that's the end of the quest. You'll never learn what Balian's up to, and no matter what path you took, he'll continue going back to this strange altar every night and then leaving at morning. The Jarl's son will also begin to have strange outbursts after this, saying things like, "It was Balian, I don't know what he did, but he did it." Just randomly. And Angie, an orphan he's adopted for some weird unexplained reason, because why not, will also complain about having nightmares involving him. But again, the quest's over. You'll never learn anything else about this mysterious man, or what his motivations are. Whether he's truly a hero or a villain is up to you. Coming in at number 3, we have the Book of Fate at Calixto's House of Curiosities in Windhelm. Calixto is a strange imperial man, you also later find out he's a serial killer, who runs his own little museum filled with magical or otherwise historical items. One of them is the Book of Fate. If you ask Calixto to give a tour, he'll comment on that book, saying it's meant to tell the destiny of its reader, and the pages change for every person. He'll then add that for some people, the pages are blank. This likely signifies an imminent death, or perhaps the reader has no destiny at all. Should you open up the book, surprisingly enough, it'll be nothing but blank pages. This can be either very empowering or quite terrifying. Considering there's already a preset destiny for the player, or at least something resembling one thanks to all the prophecies, I found this one to be too spooky for me. Fourth on our list, we have the strange behavior of From Deepest Fathoms. That's a name. From Deepest Fathoms is actually the name of a person, or more specifically, an Argonian woman who hangs out near Riften's docks. If you get too close to her, she'll approach you and beg that you take an item called the lexicon off of her hands and return it to an ancient dwarven ruin. You see, the lexicon is an ancient dwarven artifact with incomprehensible power that really seems to have messed with From Deepest Fathoms. If you're feeling a little bit sympathetic and want to get your good deed for the day done, you can promise to take the lexicon off of this seemingly crazy woman's hands and return it to its rightful place, thus beginning the quest Unfathomable Depths. However, in traditional Bethesda fashion, you're also given the option to reject this woman please and say, no, the lexicon's not my problem, why should I take care of it? Thus, you won't begin the quest. However, if you choose this option, things will get a little bit weird. Waiting a few days after rejecting her, and From Deepest Fathoms will completely vanish from the Riften docks. Nowhere to be found. It's pretty creepy. If you head down to Riften's catacombs, there you can find a coffin for From Deepest Fathoms. In it will be all of her belongings, including the lexicon, which you can pick up and begin the quest anyway. So if you're a completionist, even if you rejected her initially, you can still start the quest eventually. However, if this not-so-lusty Argonian was never able to get rid of the lexicon, it will have driven her to her own demise. Whether she took her own life because of the insanity, or there were even more sinister causes behind this, is still unknown. And finally, to conclude this list, the tragedy of the Lost Prospect Mine is certainly a memorable one. You can find this abandoned location just east of Riften, and it's not attached to any quests, so it's certainly easy to overlook. Inside, it's blatantly apparent that this mine has been vacant for quite some time, but there's been quite a bit left over by the previous occupants too. Various pieces of silverware and mining tools dot the place. However, a journal can be found near the center of the structure that reveals an interesting backstory. The mine was purchased by a man named Byrnes, who is best friends with the author of this diary, who goes by Hedrier. The journal goes on to say that it was purchased for almost next to nothing. However, despite the mine's low cost, it was in even worse condition than either of the two expected. The two partners didn't have enough money to hire any employees, and Hedrier seems to be pretty disenfranchised with the whole idea. He comments on just how tiny the mine was, calling it little more than a glorified cave, and complains that there were no actual exposed ore veins, so he and Byrnes simply had to tunnel in random directions, hoping that they would eventually strike something. Evidence of this behavior can be found in the cave itself, with various tunnels leading to little more than dead ends. At one point, the two were getting desperate and running low on supplies, so Byrnes asked Hedrier to head over to Riften to restock. Hedrier was gone for no more than 12 days, but when he returned, Byrnes had disappeared entirely, vanished out of thin air. Hedrier's final entry in his journal describes his return from Riften and feeling of betrayal. Quote, "So I come back, and nothing. No sign of Byrnes. It's like he just up and left. No blood, no struggle. He just ran out on me, I suppose. I've waited 3 days and he's not coming back. I'm gonna head to Riften and see if I can find him or some other work there. No sense in wasting any more time here. Byrnes, if you're reading this, I expected better from you." It's pretty sad. It seems like Byrnes just decided to abandon his best friend to their misfortune, until you realize what really happened. Should you jump behind a waterfall in the cave, you'll find a small, hidden tunnel that leads to a room filled with gold ore and the skeleton of Byrnes. As his best friend was gone, it looks like he finally struck gold ore. The two were going to be rich. However, in his excitement, Byrnes must have began tunneling too deep into the vein, and it gave way, collapsing on top of the man and pinning his legs to the floor. He must have been laying there in agony for quite some time. But this story gets even creepier when you realize that Hedrier was only gone for 12 days. So by the time he returned, there's a good chance that Byrnes was still alive, screaming in agony, begging for assistance. Alas, his cries went unheard, as he was too deep into the tunnel and they were muffled by a roaring waterfall. As Hedrier walked into the mine, he likely sat there waiting for his best friend, who was only a few feet away, begging for assistance. This whole story makes me feel so uneasy. Hedrier and his best friend were so close to each other, and had he heard his friend's screams, Hedrier could have possibly saved Byrnes, and the two would have been rich. But alas, they suffered a much different and sadder fate. And there you have it, 5 secret and spooky stories within the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Hopefully you learned something new in this list. If you did, like ratings are always very much appreciated. And what things have you come across in Skyrim that made you feel a little bit disturbed or frightened? Leave a comment down below. Thanks for stopping by, everybody, and hope to see you all in my next video. Peace out, everyone.